Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Candace Cruz. I'm the host of the panel today for the film animation process from concept to screen. And I know that some of you guys that were early birds had some conversations with us earlier about what you were looking for and what you were interested about and what drew you to this panel. So we're definitely going to leave some of the floor time at the end open for you guys to have your questions, and we'll try and answer as much as possible, make sure that you guys enjoy this panel and really get what you're looking for. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and introduce everyone here on this lovely panel, or rather, they're going to introduce themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Mr. Phil Svitek.
Hello, everyone. I'm Phil Svitek, and collectively, we all work on a project called the Arbiters. And for that project, I am the writer, director, producer.
Good morning, everyone. You all look so great. I should have dressed up too. My name is Astoria Hill, and I am one of the producers for the animated feature, The Arbiters.
All right, I am Keoki Trask. I am a voice actor, and I'm bringing one of, or two of the characters to life. One or two of them, I think.
A couple.
What did we end up? A couple, yeah. So that's what I do.
That's what you do.
That's what I do.
My name is Sarah Stretton. I originally got brought onto this project to voice the lead character, and then I guess I talked too much or something because I got roped into the writing production process and have been really involved in every aspect. Phil can't get rid of me.
You're just too good. You're just too good.
My name is John. I'm one of the writer-producers.
Fantastic. Well, so the way that we're going to break up this panel is we're going to break it up kind of in three parts. We're going to talk about the actual beginning of fundraising, Seed and Spark, different ways of starting, because I know a lot of people here at Comic-Con are creating their own films and wanting to know that aspect of it. Then we'll talk a little bit more of the actual conception and the production part, and then we'll go into a little bit more of the character development and all of the creative portion at the end for the actor's perspective. So I'm actually going to let Phil take it away at the beginning and tell me a little bit more of like the actual conception and the idea and the start of this project and where you went from there into like the Seed and Spark and how to get the fundraising portion.
Sure. Try to answer all those.
Yeah, well, there's two in there.
So overall, I'm a huge fan of animation, and obviously animation is a wide sweeping term. You know, there's 3D animation, 2D animation, stop motion, and everything in between. But for me, I grew up loving like the Hanna-Barbera stuff in particular, and always just had an affinity towards 2D animation. And as a filmmaker, having done a few movies, I wanted to kind of go beyond my immediate scope of perhaps some funding, right? So the idea I had, if it was live action, would probably be like a $300 million movie. In terms of animation, it could be a lot cheaper and still look good. Like what I love about animation is that what you see is the final product, right? No one, you pick a style and stuff like that, and no one can say, oh, it's bad CGI. Like it just is the final product, right? And so that's how we kind of conceived this thing. And luckily, I always ask people around me, like, do you want to be part of the project? And all these people said yes. So I think that answers.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think so. And I think first of all, I do want to get a show of hands. How many of you all are filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers yourselves? So I know that we're in an age, especially after the strikes and everything that happened, of doing a lot more indie. And I think what really fascinated me about this project is how much goes into fundraising and actually doing something a little bit more grassroots. And also, if you guys do notice, up on the screen, there is a QR code, and Phil has done a wonderful job in the whole production team of having a lot of information for you guys, any new filmmakers or someone that this is their first time doing this type of project. There's a lot of supplemental information that he's provided. So tell me about how that went, and you guys chose Seed and Spark and what that looks like.
Yeah, so I knew that with this project, even just to do a teaser and a proof of concept for what we're essentially in the development stage of all this, and I couldn't self-fund it like the past movies and things like that. And thankfully, because of my past movies, and by the way, pretty much everyone here has been involved in those projects as well, we've kind of garnered goodwill, if you will. And so it was like, okay, people have seen my projects, they can see if they like it or not. Now, granted, they weren't animation, but if they like me, they might like this out-of-the-box idea that I'm all of a sudden going to do animation. So, we picked a goal of what we were going to fund, which was around $30,000 with Seed and Spark, and then just kind of, went after it. And for me, I'm always of the mindset, well, whatever we end up with, that's at least something that we didn't have before. So we ended up around $24,000, so not the full amount, but it got us started. And, it's certainly way better than nothing, right?
Astoria, I would like you to chime in too, specifically with production, how to keep organized, especially when doing that type of fundraising and then also going into the animation and everything else.
Well, it's really simple. You just sort of have to be a little bit psycho to keep track of everything. But no, seriously, when Phil actually decided to bring me on, I told him that I was very nervous because I've never produced anything before. But he saw that I can kind of function as like a type A sort of person. Really weird. I love lists and organization and, are you laughing at me?
Yes.
It's fun for me. So I think that, just being able to see the bigger picture, and also I keep this in mind too when I'm working, okay, this is finished, what's the next step? Really being a forward thinker is going to help you a lot when it's in terms of not just fundraising, like keeping up with who pledged, but also like, okay, someone just pledged, especially in this economy. That means a lot. So we want to make sure that we show our gratitude to these people. What are things that we can do to let them know how much we appreciate it? So always just sort of having like that forward thinking mindset really helps a lot.
Great. Anyone else over here want to chime in a little bit more on the production side, or even what it was like for you to do your own grassroots outreach? Because I know on specifically projects like this, you do have to reach out to your own network too.
Well, I don't know if this will answer any questions, but I also think, why did we choose to just fundraise for just the teaser instead of the full film? Mm-hmm. And when you make those choices, like when you're going to be seeking funding, we made the choice that we didn't want to just be going with a script. Mm-hmm. This is about the world and what people when you're selling or producing a project, the proof of concept isn't always just a script, or we didn't choose just to do a scene. Mm-hmm. It became important for us as we made the choice as a team that we wanted to show scope, so it was picking a bunch of scenes to animate in the trailer, not choosing the easy route of let's just do a 3-minute scene, let's show them this. No, it's taking it the step further and creating all of these different worlds for the teaser and bringing that to our animation team as maybe not always going the easy route, I think was a big decision for us. And then Phil bringing us on, the starting point isn't always like a full script. I think that was important to me. Phil came to me with an idea. And sometimes the script doesn't come first. Sometimes it is for us it was an overarching of a story, and we are, and I think knowing for animation, the script is going to change like multiple times throughout has been an interesting part in our development thus far. That's what I would add so far.
Yeah.
John?
Ditto.
Best answer of the day.
And a few words.
So in that regards, for anyone that's wanting to down the line sell their product or sell their creation and then actually have that, what is it that they need, especially when you're coming from an idea and then going into concept and then creating that? What materials make it a little bit more feasible for someone that has no idea what's up there in that idea and you have to bring it to life, if that makes sense? Like what pitch material should they have? What type of product should they provide? And what are they fundraising for?
Yeah, I think it's a weird thing to try to fundraise, right? Because you want to show people like, here's our idea, but we don't have anything created. So we have to be very strategic about how we present the project with nothing, right? Just to get the money. But in general, I have sort of this viewpoint for artists that whatever the smallest iteration of your project within the means of your budget to go out and make it, go do that, you know? So if it literally is all you can do is a script, then do that, you know, apply to some grants, get some script competitions, like just build momentum with wherever you're at. And again, you know, whoever your favorite filmmaker is, you know, let's say for me, it's someone like Robert Rodriguez or Christopher Nolan. It's like I could study his where he's at today, having won Oppenheimer, but I like to reverse it and be like, okay, what was his first movie? Okay, it was called Following. So instead of making Oppenheimer right now, let me start with Following, and that's kind of how I personally got to this place in my career. So you don't always have to go for the biggest project right away. Look at the South Park guys. They literally started within the crudest way, and look at them and their success now. So I hope that both answers and inspires.
So now let's fast forward a little bit. You've done the fundraising portion. Now we're getting into the actual animation portion of things. How did you take an idea and then find the team to actually execute that and do the animation portion?
So luckily with our last project, animation has been something I've been very interested in for a while, which I guess surprises some people, but so for almost like a decade, I was like cold calling animation studios and being like, well, what does it take and how much does it cost and all these things. And I generally find most people are very warm, like filmmakers want to have that sense of community. And then when we did my second feature, there's like this portion where someone's taking ayahuasca, right? So it's a drug trip. And as part of that, we utilized the animation. And it just happened to, on Upwork, find this wonderful person named Maribin, who was a project manager. And I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. And we did like this small little portion. And then I was like, okay, I think I found my people. And then I was like, what would it take to do a feature? And here we are. It's crazy, but if nothing else, like some people will say, whether it's Fiverr, Upwork, or any other sort of freelancer site, if you do the interview process well, you can find real hidden gems. And I've been lucky to do that. And when you do, just like with these wonderful people, hold on to them until they leave you. And by the way, when they leave you, it's one of those bittersweet things, just to clarify that. It's because they're so successful that they're growing in their own careers that, that in a way, you wouldn't want to hold them back. At least that's how I feel.
Speaking to that, Phil, it's to elaborate. Phil, you met Maribin, who's one person, and the team has expanded. Through Maribin, we have, I'm going to blank on the number. How many animation artists?
Around 15 at this
around
point.
15 animation artists, and they're working, they're in Cebu, and it's just these relationships. Sometimes one person can really grow into an entire network. So you started small, but through word of mouth and through looking outside the box, you'll be surprised what you can find.
Can you tell me what the first part was? Like, how did this start? Like, was there this is what the girl looks like, this is what the world looks like? Like, I think for me it's very interesting when you are not the actual animator, and I have no drawing skills. So where do you go from there where you're like, this is what I want the world to look like, and have that match the idea?
Yeah, so very early on, one of the things we sort of made was just this very bare bones kind of like explainer of like, okay, well, what does ours look like in terms of the detail of characters, the detail of props and costumes, as well as sets. And so for ours, to keep costs relatively not ballooning, it was like, well, let's go somewhere in the middle. And in terms of what our middle looks like, there it is. And so, yeah, you start with, again, because the script's ever changing, you start with the constants, right? So, okay, we have the main character, Vidya, so we should probably focus on her first,
Yes.
But I'm happy to let anyone else jump in and see if, how, in terms
The
of
first things we designed?
Yeah.
Yeah, we started with all of our characters first. And then from there, we went to general scenes, and then from scenes, scenes and sets, we went to props. Starting with anything that we had to focus on our teaser that became the main goal. So starting with your characters, but then seeing who had the most screen time in the teaser, and then building out those scenes, because it does come down to how much it costs. And because we didn't shoot a teaser that was one scene, one set of characters, we had to spend more money. But I think characters first. Same with, and that also, I think the heart of our stories are character driven. So also in our writing process, developing those characters first and then putting them in scenarios they're kind of the heart.
And what did your storyboard process look like as well?
So initially, I literally just like found images of other movies that like kind of represented just even the bare bones of what the shot would be. So, you know, if they're on a train, anything that looks like a train would do. You know, as long as it kind of had the angle. And then we slowly kind of developed that, you know, just to internally see if it worked. And then eventually, like the different side for us is that we shot it, quote unquote, live action first before beginning the animation. And when I say live action, like really bare bones, you know, just playing quite literally in a backyard.
Think black box theater.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if anyone wants to speak to that experience, have at it.
John?
Ditto. No. Well, it's really, you're just like, you're 4 and 5 playing in the backyard. You're just, because it doesn't matter. Everything that you're doing is imaginary anyway, because they're going to fill it in with the animation. So the fun part about that is this is a sword.
And this was our alternative to storyboarding
Previous, yeah.
and making it a more collaborative process.
Right. So, because all they need are the outlines of people, and then they can fill in the world with whatever else they need. So it's actually quite freeing in terms of acting, and it incredibly imaginative, because everything you're doing is made up in that moment. There's nothing there. You're just bodies trying to do what you want the animated characters to do. So.
Yeah. And so much of like our animation team, they're incredibly creative, and we are all about opening the doors to them and about them adding their art and their creativity, but giving them this framework allows them to have their creativity.
Yes.
You don't just say, oh, I want a scene in a train where someone's looking out a window. They could do something with that, but you're going to find more creativity if you give them, if Phil gives them a reference. I want it from this angle with showing this emotion, because the subtext is I want it to mean this, this, and this. And then he's also bringing the actor and saying, act this out, finding what you can do there. It's not the traditional way of, it takes it out of more of the like artist-director hands and has made it a collaborative process. But it's been really fun.
And I would like to add, because they don't have to spend their time creating that angle or whatever it is, they can spend their creative time on actually imagining the world and creating it, and that's where their creativity is best used, rather than figuring out, how do I create this person? It's that form's already there.
Yeah. And we'll bring it back to money. That's part of it too. It's like you have a certain amount of time with these people for the animation. It's, if you can create the framework and then pass it, you're going to get more use and more reward this way.
Yeah, and it's not that crazy. Like, you know, all the great animators usually have like a mirror right there, and they're always checking their facial expressions to see how it would look. And, you know, even like Netflix's Blue-Eyed Samurai, there's a lot of action sequences, and they would get stunt people to choreograph the whole thing, and it would get videotaped for the animators. So it's, we just took it to kind of the ultimate level of that.
And what was it like as an actor participating in this and taking something and just playing around with it and changing direction? How much direction changed when you actually got there? How much of the voices changed, especially when you're trying to do something that is more animation and you're just playing? What was that experience like for you?
Well, Phil had a lot of input. He had a lot of consideration about the world going into it. So we spent a good amount of time designing out the character and the voice, and we went back and forth for quite a while, and even did some retakes, which worked out great. So, I mean, it was pretty straightforward. He knew exactly what he wanted. By the time I came into it, you know, because usually we'll come into it, you know, early. It kind of depends on the project, early on or later on, or what character it is. But Phil definitely had a vision, and we just stuck to that vision, made some minor tweaks, and I had the easiest job in the world. These guys had the toughest job. So, yeah, I wasn't able to be there for the motion capture part of it. I was kind of bummed. That was part of the joy of it. That's kind of what brought me onto the project, and I wasn't able to make it that day, but I made myself available to phone in and interact with everyone. Yeah.
What about for you?
What to say? No, animation, I think what drew me to this project is the freedom that it gives you. I think that it is about trying it from level 0 to level 100 and knowing that you're probably not going to use level 0 or level 100, but being willing to go there acting-wise. So with the motion capture, with that, it's just like we did however many takes, but not, sometimes we just would go over the top. And so it was really freeing as an actor because with the style of animation, watching the characters, I don't even know how to articulate this well. John,
John, what is she trying to say? Can you tell us what's going on
can
up
you make
there?
sense of what
I'm sorry, I
saying?
zoned out about 2 minutes ago. What?
By the way, that is how our writing sessions go, where we'll just have ideas and we'll turn. John, what am I
John,
trying to say?
fix it. John, make it make sense. No, I'm just saying that with animation versus live action, where you're focused on just the little motions of your face and what you look like and what the frame is. With animation shooting these live motions, it's about doing every level.
And you brought in something interesting. So you mentioned 0 to 100. From a voice perspective, we tried so many things because you never know how ultimately when you're dealing with a large cast working remote in a lot of situations or just changes that happen during the post-production process, you might say, we want to take it in a little bit more of an action sequence, or we want to have this kind of be the swell. And so having a menu of sorts to work within, you may find that we thought we were going to go this way with actor A, but actor B came in with this performance and it's just something magical there. So we ended up having, I think, 75 stems or something, 75 takes of certain lines and different energy levels and just...
75.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, exactly.
It
You read her mind. Look at that. We made it. We got there.
It allows the storyteller to have many options when we get to the final edit.
I feel like that was one of the most interesting parts when we were talking about it is what is the biggest difference between a live action film that we're seeing versus an animation, and especially from the production side, but also from the creative side, because there's a little bit more nuance and you have to almost over exaggerate. Is that something that you felt was a difference when you were delivering a performance?
Well, I do think that all goes back, it ties into style. Mm-hmm. And when Phil and I were talking about style, he did want to push the boundaries of emotions. He wants it to have heart, but he wants to have the freedom of going extreme at points.
You never realize how dead a performance can sound. It feels like you're going peak, but then when you add that epic swell, that cinematic war drums, or that epic fall where something is happening on scene, and you just never know how epic it's going to be until you hear the music, the sound design in the end. So you always have to kind of push it 10% over where you think you need to.
Okay.
And,
when you start thinking you're crazy, you probably are doing it right.
Yeah.
You're almost there. Yes, you're almost there.
I just want to note that's the second time we've talked about being crazy. Thank you very much. So.
There will be another time, assuredly.
Well, that brings up a good point, especially with the music. There's so many other components. What inspired the music for this, or where are you going with that, and how important is the music aspect of animation?
For us, it was very important because when we're talking about our proof of concept, or we use the word teaser, we essentially looked at it. If the movie was completed, what would the trailer be like for this? So it's about a 2-minute trailer. And so it's got 40 different scenes, 73 different shots. And so, a trailer has not only music, but it has sometimes multiple music, right? And you're trying to market it that way. Mm-hmm. So it becomes ultra important And so, we talked about, okay, what's the story kind of feel like? Again, if this was a full movie, are we going more orchestral, whatever else? But we do have a clip. So this is Edgar Cortez. He's our sound designer / mixer. I've worked with him. So here's a short little clip of him explaining it.
Working on an animated film like this is amazing because of the world building. You get to read a script and you get to see a single still of a character, a setting, and you have to create it from scratch. It's either the music for a certain character, for their emotions, or you get to create the sound design for a weapon or for the arbiters themselves. It's something that is so collaborative. You get to create something completely new, something that hasn't really existed, but it's grounded in reality. Even from the early stages of storyboarding, where you get to make the first music cues and the first sound design, and it's just a still image, but you get to convey either an explosion or a very sentimental scene. It's an amazing process to make animated films because it's a continuous creation until the very last export of the movie is done.
Keoki also has experience with sound design and all that.
And he's absolutely right. I mean, we think of the sound of a Star Trek phaser, the sound of a Star Wars lightsaber, the sound of a transformer transforming. The props themselves become iconic elements of the story. And so it's often said you turn off the sound on any production and everything drops, to almost nil. So I started out in post-production sound with a love of sound design, and it's my love of film first. A lot of people think that that's an audio job. It's a film job. You're a film fan. You just recognize how important music and sound design are. They're not separate things. Oftentimes you'll see the best sound designers are composers and vice versa. And I also put voice acting in there. As soon as you hear where the direction is going, you're like, okay, I'm going to pivot over this direction just to make sure that everything is cohesive. You can't, it really is a team sport on this, especially I feel in animation because so much is controllable. But I feel like the team did an amazing job. I've seen the teaser or the first parts of it so far. It's epic. You're going to love it.
So just out of going off of that, creating a lightsaber sound or creating a sound from nothing that doesn't exist or creating a world that doesn't exist, how do you communicate that to an animator or to the sound engineer and saying, bring it to life?
For me, I always pick just temp sound, but I will caution, as a filmmaker, it can be very easy to fall in love with whatever you pick, right? So if you're gonna pick like a Star Wars score as part of your initial pass of something, obviously you cannot use that. And what you will get will be different, and it should be different. You have to let people build, and unfortunately I've seen so many filmmakers just fall in that trap, but it doesn't sound like it's not supposed to. And you do have to let the artist really kind of take it, and I think for us initially, the goal was always let's build a foundation, let's all get on the same page, and so it was a lot of longer meetings initially, and now we're at the point where I can really trust these guys to soar because they understand the fundamentals of what we've built.
I think that when you're giving notes, you have to be as clear as you possibly can, especially when it comes to animation. I think in every avenue, because all of us intake information in different ways. So you have to kind of make it so clear that anybody can understand it. So even if you say it out loud to yourself, kind of figure out what that note really means, or use a panel of people to bounce off of to make sure that they understand what you're saying, so that when you do send that information to the animators, it's very clear what you're meaning, especially for this film. We're working with people that are in a different countries.
Phil, you had mentioned earlier, and I think this is an important point for anybody working with teams, not just in animation or film production, but once you find your team, once you find your people that you can almost just look at and they know exactly the direction you can go, and maybe you can even take that ball and go a bit further with it, don't let them go. You know, that's your team going forward. So you kind of, over time, I've seen in all film production, you start off with a close friend, a couple of people, they start bringing people in, and over your career, you just kind of, those are your people. You just end up reusing them and inviting other people in, bringing people back in for later productions. So I think getting that groove, getting your styles down and cohesive, I think that's important early on. So if you have a partner that you're working with, or just even sharing ideas with, if they're good at it, hire them. So.
And if you don't have someone, keep your eyes open, like really start networking, because I would say that's my biggest piece of advice is like, especially talking about animation, these are going to be really long projects. These take years. You can't it's so hard to do them alone. Like, we keep pushing like to Astoria's, keeping us on track, but with the team, with someone that you get to keep pushing together, because you kind of have to get it in your brain, this is going to take a lot of time. It could take years for animation, so. Get ready.
That's a good point. It's like how long, what is the average timeline for something like this?
I started when I was 20.
Almost done.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the budget, right? So part of the consideration as we go to pitch this project, you know, we're giving them a menu of, okay, if you want to do it in 2 years, it's feasible. We'll need 100 animators at this cost. If we're going to go 3 years, it's going to be, you know, we can do it with less animators at a lower cost. 4 years, you know, and you just continue down that path. And, you know, so like there's a new documentary on Max about Hayao Miyazaki. Originally it was called like 2,890 something days with Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki, because that's essentially how long it took him to make The Boy and the Heron, which equates to about 7 years. So it can take a while, for sure.
So
How many of you have been working on an idea for 5 years? Right, so a couple, yeah.
Great.
I mean, and 10 years. Yeah, so I mean, it's already brewing. You just get those teams in place and start to materialize them. Again, like Phil said at the beginning, it doesn't matter what that looks like at the beginning. Just sketch it out. Get some concept drawings, get some ideas going, some writing snippets, some concepts that you can start sharing with someone else. Because collaboratively, you're going to find people who similarly have stories, and maybe you can bring those together and start building out what your world looks like, you know, on paper.
And when all else fails, bribery, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like, find out what people want. Phil always feeds us very well. So, you know, it really motivates us to keep going with the project, too.
I love that food is the motivating factor for this whole project. I love it. What did you guys have at your lunches? We'll talk about that. Before we open up the floor, because we only have a little bit of time left, and I want to make sure everybody has their questions answered. I would like to hear what's your favorite moment thus far, from the beginning until now, of this project for each of you.
I need a second to think.
So I don't get a second. No, honestly, it's seeing it all come together, and this is one of the first projects for me where I really have to have that trust in everyone else. So I mentioned Rob Rodriguez as a big hero of mine, and you know, he has a very famous book called Rebel Without a Crew, where he, you know, made his first movie literally by himself, pretty much. And I'm used to kind of that aspect of it. This, I can't do it on my own, and so it's really letting go and having that trust in people and really empowering them. So it's been amazing. For sure, and getting to know the animation team, you know, really encouraging them and seeing their personalities kind of start to flourish now that we're all getting comfortable with each other.
Did you come up with your answer?
I think so.
Okay.
I would say as a whole, my favorite part has been seeing how everything has come together. It's like an orchestra. You have all these different instruments. You got the drums and the horns, and then when everything just finally comes together, that collaboration, that's been my favorite part. And also, like Phil was mentioning earlier, you have something in mind, but once you actually get to the point of having the final product, seeing what it's meant to be and just really falling in love with that. So I would definitely say that that's been my favorite part.
All right. I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to say right now, because right now is the culmination of everything we've done so far. There's been a lot of pivots that are naturally going to happen. And, I think that watching the trailer recently, it opened my eyes as to a little bit more of the vision, because we're behind the scenes. But I would say this moment right now, and the next moment will be the next one, and I'll say that's my favorite. But we're here because of a lot of work, a lot of imagination, and a lot of letting go. That's the hardest thing in this industry to do, is just to say, okay, it's where it is, it's where it needs to be, and stepping back from that. So I really give kudos to Phil and the team for that.
I think mine's almost like the opposite of that in one way, though, because I come from live action, where there's a beauty in, like, you go to shoot one day, what you got is what's going in. Yep. You might have to fix it in the editing and like make it fit because you thought that scene was on, but now when you look at the full picture, maybe it doesn't work as well as you thought. Versus here, we did VO for a full day, we put it in, but it's not just that day. Now we do get to look at it from the macro level, and we can go back and adjust. So I do think I'm having a lot of fun not being so, this is a moment in time. It's creating the whole picture, and then going back and being able to touch things up and being able to make subtle shifts by how you see the overall art versus like a bunch of, this is what we got that day and we're putting them together and finding a way that it makes sense.
John, is that ditto for you?
Thanks for taking my line.
Yeah, one line.
Just one line.
I think my favorite moment was when I passed on the opportunity to answer that question so we could get to your questions.
Oh, look at that. Well, he just opened up the floor. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Real quick, apologies. I do want to say, like, it is very humbling to be here in front of you guys. So that's also a big, big highlight. And obviously, unfortunately, the people that can't be here are the animators. And I feel like, I'm sure you guys have your favorite animation things. So what I figured, if we just take a quick moment, I just wanted to thank all the animators out there, like collectively. Could we just do that, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Oh, are we
Like,
clapping?
yes.
Yes, we're clapping. Do we want a collective thank you? Do we want everyone to get participate and say
Because,
thank you?
well, also because like obviously SAG and things like that had their negotiations last year. The animators are going through it, so you know, I just want to give them their credit. So, but yes, Q&A time.
Q&A time.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any questions? We'll go there and then we'll go there.
Hi. Ahoy.
Hi.
I wanted to ask, I just graduated college. I'm actually from New York, and I'm an illustrator and a character designer, and I really want to work in animation. But I live in New York, right? I'm here on vacation. So what I wanted to ask is, do you think it could be possible to be able to work on animated projects even if I live in California, like if I work remotely or something?
These days, yes.
Yes. Our animation team is not in Los Angeles.
And there are a lot of companies, studios, whatever you want to call them, in New York specifically as well.
I mean, half these people are holograms, so
We're not really here.
Yes, you can do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to know what everyone's favorite cartoon was growing up.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Transformers.
Gargoyles. Gargoyles. Yeah.
So many. It's again the high end bar. Wacky Racers. I'm gonna go with the out of the box one.
Spider-Man.
You still got yours down there? He's still figuring. Mine's Rugrats. I loved Rugrats. Yes. Okay, I've got some nods of approval. There we go.
Favorite animation growing up?
Yeah, no, I thought somebody said something, I didn't hear it.
Disney princess movies, John. That's what it was.
Don't judge. Don't judge.
Great, thanks for telling. Pocahontas.
There you go. Pocahontas. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah.
We can go 1 and 2. You all both raise your hands, so.
Panel. It was really insightful, and my question is, I'm a writer or trying to be a writer, and I'm wondering how you approach world building. Is it character-centered? Do you keep it only to what's relevant in an episode, or do you build out more than that?
That's a John question over there.
Actually,
That's a great question.
we probably all have a lot to say on this.
Yeah, because there is no right answer on that. You can do it either way. I typically come from character because I'm writing, I'm about the story and the arc of that, and then whatever world needs to be created for that character's arc is the way I approach that. But there are other people that like to create the world and then the people that inhabit the world and then the characters within. So it really doesn't matter. The big key is just start.
And what's your name?
Oh, I'm River.
Hi,
All right, River. What are you?
A writer.
There, do or do not. There is no try.
I like a new phrase. Trying is lying.
Wait. What is that again? Say that.
The competition.
I would also speak to that and on our notes with Phil. It is very helpful when you have a world this big to know the background that maybe doesn't make it in the script. Like the world building goes beyond what you see on the page. And for us, like Phil has, I don't know how much about the like prequel history, all of these things, and including going that into your characters. Like there's who we see in the script, like your character now, but really also I think in your mind at least, even if you don't write it down, create the whole background. It informs everything else. So yeah, I would say Phil has probably imagined 30 times the world than what we see.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I always say, I mean, look, I'm just a film fan, but write the sequels and prequels in your head, and ideally never tell it. You know, just leave it implied for the fans to co-build with you. But yeah, absolutely build it out in your head. So
It's always easy to cut.
I think there's a question right behind you too.
Hi, so I'm an animation major and I'm hoping to make my own stuff one day, and so I'm wondering what do people, like maybe you guys in general, like look for in a pitch? Like what makes you like, oh, I might want to help produce this or join this?
I usually look for passion. I mean, Astoria spoke about it, like she doesn't have producing experience, but I was like, no, but you're so organized, like I can teach you that, right? So I look for passion and, you know, is it something that I can bring something to? Because there are instances where, you know, I would love to help, but it's not in my wheelhouse. It's not something I can help with. But I personally at least try to make an effort of like, okay, even though I can't do much good for you, let me see if there's people I know. But maybe someone else has a better answer.
My answer is gut first, then do I want to be a fan of it? Do I want to watch it? Do I want to see it? And then the third one is, do I think whoever I'm getting on board with will see it through to the end? Because there's a lot of imaginative people in this industry who are so creative and have the best ideas in the world, but I want someone who's going to stay in it because...
To get it done.
Yeah, to get it done. Like, that's the commitment I want. It's a really important factor for me.
And just to piggyback off of what Sarah said, I'm so glad that you brought that point up. That was one of the key things that got me on board with this project anyway. Phil's very humble, but like he's a get-ish doner. I was like, okay, if Phil wants me to work on this project with him, I know that no matter what, come hell or high water, it's gonna get done. And that's the type of person that you want leading your team. And just for like a second, can we give a round of applause to Phil? We're all here because of Phil.
With you guys.
So just going back to your question about passion, yes. I would say don't try to figure out so much as to what other people want. Really focus on what you want, what drives you, because passion is so contagious. And even when Phil said it, that was the first thing that came to mind when you asked your question. And then going from there, everything else will just fall into place. One of the things about being an artist, as I'm sure you all know, writers, filmmakers, you kind of just gotta let go and let it flow. So passion, keep that spark, keep that drive.
Another, I would say, secret ingredients you don't think about, I would say the power of your first 10 pages. That's important for, I think, a lot of people. Like, they want to feel invested within the first 10 pages. And if you meet any lawyers Or like, don't discount people who do things like the law side or the business side.
Operations.
Yeah, they're really valuable to this process.
Anyone else? Oh, we have one in the back, and then we'll go there. So go there and then there.
Hi. Yes.
Up until last year, I actually worked in the animation industry myself, the playoffs, unfortunately. And everything I've been hearing is that the industry is in kind of a slog right now. You know, not a whole lot of stuff is getting greenlit. You know, the big studios aren't really taking a whole lot of risks on these projects. So my question is, like, with an independent project like the Arbiters, how do you guys kind of keep the wheels turning when, you know, the industry around you is kind of in
Well, I'm just going to put in there real quick. We're going to do it anyways, right?
Yeah,
All
there's
of
no
us.
other
It's-
option.
Yeah, this is what we do.
Yeah.
It's how do you make cash doing it? That's the struggle. So you make your art, and I always heard write drunk, edit sober, don't drink.
Yeah.
Write drunk,
Right.
edit sober, create now, sell it later. Look, you know, you're going to have that time to pitch it. Just keep. We were talking about that earlier. Just keep on producing content, and you know, maybe your vision changes over time. Maybe you stay the course on a particular world that you're building, but I would say just stay the course there.
And I would like to add that the industry is going to do what the industry does, and if you wait for the right circumstances, you'll never do it. So it doesn't matter what the industry is doing or what they're liking. You just got to keep going.
And I'll add one. Well, sorry.
I would say also, there's things we can do as individuals. If you don't want only tentpole movies to be made, see other movies than tentpole movies. If you're out here being a creator saying, I want my independent, my original work, my whatever made, don't just watch movies that come from franchises. Go find the other movies, because that's how
You need a
convince
market
people.
for it. So.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of that, when we say the industry, to me that's a very myopic term because we just automatically associate with Hollywood. But you know, the European film market with their film grants and things like that, there is a worldwide film industry out there, and there are other opportunities beyond just Hollywood. And you know, not that they're easier or whatever, but they are there. And I think by opening them up, and you know, to Sarah's point, I love foreign movies, and that's how. Well, I don't just look at Hollywood movies as the only movies, you know.
Well, we only have a couple minutes left. Before we get to your last question, I do want to point out up here, we do have a slide for everyone. If you want to follow the panelists, everyone up here are all wonderful creatives and very talented in their own right in everything that they do. So if you have questions, I'm sure if you follow them, they can answer them, reach out to us, and you can follow everything up there. And again, I want to point out the QR code and how valuable that is for each of you. If you are a creative and you're doing more the animation, if you're a voiceover actor or you're on the business side, there's something for everyone within that
I promise
QR code.
we're not selling you a course. It's literally a free rundown document
there you go.
that just has so much information.
Yes.
So.
I just want to make sure, because I feel like that is very invaluable, and we'll probably answer a lot of questions as well. But we'll wrap up with the last question right there.
I wanted to ask, getting into the animation industry, from your experience, do you feel like it's more valuable to build yourself up independently, like post online or like networking, or do you think it's better to go more focused on like a formal education, like let's say go into like an art college?
I mean, where I thought the question was, do you build it up independently or do you work for a company? I think at the end of the day, regardless of what path you take, you're going to want work to show, right? So whether that is going through a college, whether it's self-producing, or if you work with a company already, you know, talking about your work is not going to be as beneficial as actually showing someone something. Hence why, you know, instead of us pitching with just words, we want to let the proof of concept, the script, and all this other stuff, the pitch deck, to speak for itself as much as possible. But if anyone else...
I'll speak to that as well. I think identifying your weaknesses will help you helps make decisions. If you're really good, and your strengths. Like if you're like, hey, I need the education and I'm really good at networking when I see the same people over and over again. College, because it puts you in that environment. You know, if you work really good with one-on-one, you're really good when you have accountability. Like, find your strengths and make your choices towards your strengths versus what everyone else is doing. And it's like, so are you a networker? Do you strive when you do your best work when you're just working on your own, your creativity is unlimited? Do you work best when you're on something and then you're pushed to excel in that one way? And tailoring what you do to how you can be the best. Like, be the best you. Don't be the best, what everyone else is doing. This person over here, they went to college and they got this internship because they were best friends with this professor. But if you're not the person who talks to your professor, that's not going to be you. And if that doesn't come natural to you, maybe that's not your route. Yeah. So there's no right way to do this. There's no formula that's going to be successful. You have to keep going, and you have to figure out what's your identity and how does it help your process.
Yeah. And that is a perfect place to end. So thank you guys so much for coming to our panel today. Enjoy your entire time at Comic-Con. And if you have questions, come see everyone afterwards. So, thank you.
I was working on the storyboard floor plans. And basically the whole purpose of that was to just kind of navigate around, showing where the camera will be in reference to the scene, where the characters are in reference to the scene. So when you're kind of building out a storyboard, sometimes it is really helpful to just kind of know where in space everything is happening. There are plenty of animes that I've watched where you'll literally see a character in one direction, see another character in another direction, and sometimes they'll even just do a move where the camera goes around it. And the whole scene is just fleshed out. And that just lets you know that within the story, they know where everything's at.
I organize our team meetings, set deadlines, and track progress. I also coordinated with the animation artists, ensuring everyone was on the same page regarding their task and also their expectations. You also learned a lot during the whole process in general, actually, in terms of the animation process, budget allocations, things we need to consider and account to. And but definitely it was the team had fun doing this project. Words of advice to anyone wanting to make an animated movie. First, I think things won't always go as planned. You really need to stay adaptable and flexible, and pivot when necessary. And another thing would be each project is a new learning. You should embrace mistakes and challenges you face during the process as a new opportunity of growth. And lastly, creating an animated film or an animated movie, which for this instance was still a teaser for us, is a challenging process, but definitely a rewarding journey. So you really should stay passionate on your craft.
It's not just producing a film, it's producing and kind of creating what everything looks like. Usually you would just cast, and based on the cast, maybe you would come up with costumes or maybe a look that person could transform into, but it's not coming up with the exact look and the exact feel of not just the people, but the land and the creations. And so it's been really fun having this creativity of designing in a way. I'm not personally designing, but I'm having input on designing an entire world with people and creatures, and it's a lot of fun.
These posters, when you're doing a cityscape, it takes a long time. There are a lot of lines that you got to draw and a lot of windows. It gets very repetitive after a while. But it was really fun. And I will say the one with the gym was my favorite because I actually started off. Initially, I didn't know exactly how to envision it properly. I kept trying to find pictures online of somebody holding something like that. And then eventually I walked by and my wife was cooking dinner. And so I saw her holding a potato. And I was like, hey, come here. Let me take a picture of you holding that potato. Do me a favor. Just hold it like this. And let's see what that looks like.